one off, Johnny.
Get him off of me! We're going this way.
My own reasoning, my own personal, if I'm honest, is not escaping God isn't actually one of the things on my list of.
Yes, it is. Sure, it is. You're just nice. You're just nice about it. You're just not. You're not sleazy about it. You're just nice about it. But the fact of the matter is, you are on the run from God, because God is the necessary precondition for everything. You can say, "Oh, well, you haven't demonstrated this." Say, "Good. Then, what is demonstrability based upon? What is an apple based upon? Where do you get intelligibility for anything? It can only come from your system, and your system is going to require a ground, a foundation, an absolute, an ultimacy."
Yes. But
the grounds upon which you withhold belief in God, you throw that out the window when you are operating under the impersonal absolute. Everyone will be operating consciously or unconsciously, explicitly or implicitly, from either a personal absolute or an impersonal absolute. There's no third option.
Okay.
So if you say, I don't accept that the absolute is personal, namely God, then that statement of fact is going to be derivative of an impersonal absolute. So what's your reason for believing in that? The answer is you don't have one. So you have to do one of two. You have to do one of two things. You have to say nothing, because you won't be able to make a statements that are intelligible, because intelligibility is going to require an absolute. Or you're just going to go along trying to make statements of fact, whatever they may be, and pretending that they're intelligible, knowing the full time that they're not intelligible.
Okay, the thing about making statements of fact, right? So, for an atheist like me, and I'll be honest here, right? As I always try to be, I look at the world, as you would say, there is a uniformity to it. There is.
Do you have a good reason to believe in that? Is the continuity that represents the uniformity, is that dependent or non-dependent?
Yeah, and I know you'd probably make fun of this answer, but I don't actually know the answer to that. I don't know.
Then you don't know there's continuity.
Well, I don't know there's continuity, you would say, but yet
Listen, I have a pair of dice. I roll them 7 times, and they come up 7s every time. Did that happen randomly, or did it happen because the dice were fixed?
I don't know.
Well, that's precisely the position that you're in when it comes to continuity. Are the sequences of events that you call continuity? Is it the product of something that's static, producing the continuity, or is the consistency simply coincidental of unconnected events?
Okay, I think we're talking about Do I look to? Okay,
you cannot help but appeal indirectly to universals and to laws of nature.
Yes, universal laws of nature. Yes.
Universals and universals would themselves be secured by the regularities or laws of nature, but you can't rationally account for universals. Now, the atheist unbeliever thinks that they can. They say, of course, I'm a rational person and I believe it. No, it doesn't work that way. Just because the atheist thinks that he's rational doesn't mean that the ideas that he holds to and asserts have rational grounds to them. The reason why the atheist adopts certain conceptions, such as laws or universals, is not because they can be rationally justified. It's because if they don't hold to them, nothing makes sense. And the atheist, in his secular point of view, wants the world to make sense. What if the world doesn't make sense?
Yeah, what if the world doesn't make sense? But what
if it that each one of our mental states is simply unconnected and unrelated to the next, and the current mental state that I'm having right now, I just think that it was connected to past events, but they're all, not connected.
It's possibly,
and they would say, well, that's ridiculous. That would be absurd, right? Well, maybe everything is absurd, but you see, the unbeliever wants everything to be non-absurd. But the point is, they already have the rational irrational tension. They want to be rational, and they want their world around them to be rational. But you see, the world around them ultimately is non-rational. But they want to believe that their rationality is exuded from non-rationality. Can you explain this to me? How do cats give birth to golf balls?
They don't.
Right. How does non-rationality exude rationality?
Okay, I have to say, I'm being honest here, right? I'm a little bit confused about how cats give birth to golf balls or non-rationality.
That's an analogy.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Things beget themselves.
Okay, so can you see from your position?
Oh, say, can you see?
yeah, I know, yeah. So put yourself in the position of the atheist, right? And you don't have ultimate knowledge of where the world began, but you do have, let's say using science and reasoning.
No. The atheist doesn't have any knowledge.
I did say to put yourself in their position.
I am. The atheist knows nothing.
So
the atheist who claims that he knows some things without God, that's a vacuous claim.
Okay. So we can't do science?
The atheist, given his system, can't know anything. But given that the atheist does know something, therefore God.
So you're saying the atheist who, do you understand?
The atheist knows things because he's created in the image of God and he's in God's world, and God has made it so that he can know some things in spite of the fact that he wants to slap God in the face and deny God as the necessary precondition. But when the atheist boasts that he can know some things without God, then I say, okay, how do you know something? What's the nature of reality? Where do you get where knowledge is going to require that there be universals, that there be abstractions,
that there be
how do they account for universals? By experience? By thinking?
So
the atheist adoption of universals is in violation of their criterion of belief.
I disagree.
Oh, okay. Then tell me, what's the good reason to believe in universals? Based upon what? What's the rational grounds?
Oh, when we do something, right? We take a piece, an experiment, and we do it, and it's repeatable, and we do it again and again, and we keep coming out with the same answer.
So the future will be like the past?
Yeah.
That's begging the question.
Yeah, well, I look, you know, Darth.
Oh, wait a minute. All swans are white. You say, how do you know all swans are white? Every swan that I've met is white.
Yes, I know that. Yeah.
That's exactly what the atheist is doing with certain consistencies or regularities. Well, I've never seen a non-white swan. I've never seen a deviation from dropping a ball and it hitting the ground.
Okay. So when you conduct a scientific, experiment and you have a control as best you can,
you're not understanding. You can't even get to that level. Why is observation testing meaningful? It's only meaningful unless you presuppose the reality of the external physical world, causal connections between events, and laws of nature and continuity. Has that been established?
Okay. Right.
No, it hasn't. And the atheist criterion is, I'm not going to believe in foundational truths, such as God, without a good reason. Good. So what's your foundational truth about the nature of reality that will be the framework or the basis for the intelligibility of science? What is it?
Well, you see, science doesn't depend. Look, we can. Are you saying we can't?
Science presupposes the reality. Science presupposes many things. And among that are the reality of the external physical world. You can't demonstrate the reality of the external physical world through your senses. Number two, you can't demonstrate causality. Causality is an abstraction.
Okay.
Three, you can't demonstrate that nature operates according to laws. How are you going to do so? Through induction? First of all, appealing to observation would beg the question, because observation requires laws of nature to begin with for its intelligibility. Number two, even if I were to overlook that, how are you going to establish that there are these universal invariant laws of nature? Well, through your sense perception? That would be induction as well. But we've never seen an exception to it in the past. And I say all swans are white.
Yeah, but we don't know all swans are white.
Right. And the fact of the matter is, just because there's been a series of consistencies, that doesn't mean that they're the product of laws. The reason why people opt for laws is because they want their world to make sense rather than the world around them to be absurd. So do we know that the world is not absurd on a grand scale?
No.
Right.
We hope that it isn't,
No, but you're not understanding. The atheist claims that in order for him to accept a foundational belief, the ultimacy of reality, that's the basis for all facts, right? What's rational justification? But you see, when it comes to the personal absolute, I want proof. I want evidence. Well, what's your evidence for the impersonal absolute? Because if you lack belief in the personal absolute, then by default, you're operating from an impersonal absolute. What's the justification for that?
Yeah. We do sit, honestly, we do sit on two opposite sides of the table. And when you ask for my absolute, I can't provide it. That's me being honest.
So then you have no basis for reason. Therefore, you have no basis to say God is unworthy of belief.
Because atheism provides no foundation for intelligibility, they ultimately cannot provide an intelligible answer to the ultimate nature of reality for any given fact they invoke. Atheism can only provide subsurface data, information, and approximate explanations to any given fact that ultimately ends with "I don't know." "I don't know" leads to incoherence when it comes to giving something its meaning to the ultimate nature of reality for any given fact. Because atheism has been found to be incoherent and unintelligible at its very core, and contradictory as it violates its own criterion, all atheist comments will be subject to removal because of their basis of unintelligibility and incoherence. This channel is not a place for troll monkeys to sling mud to a wall, but for serious biblical considerations for serious people. God bless. Hope your day is good.